So this next story is going to confuse the shit out of you. Apparently, George Soros and the Koch brothers have teamed up to end U.S. forever war policy. So this article's in the Boston Globe, and they say the following. Besides being billionaires and spending much of their fortunes to promote pet causes, the leftist financier George Soros and the right-wing Koch brothers have little in common. They could be seen as polar opposites. Soros is an old-fashioned New Deal liberal. The Koch brothers are fire-breathing right-wingers who dream of cutting taxes and dismantling government. Now they have found something to agree on. The United States must end its forever war and adopt an entirely new foreign policy. In one of the most remarkable partnerships in modern American political history, Soros and Charles Koch, the more active of the two brothers, are joining to finance a new foreign policy think tank in Washington. It will promote an approach to the world based on diplomacy and restraint rather than threats, sanctions, and bombing. This is a radical notion in Washington where every major think tank promotes some variant of neocon militarism or liberal interventionism. Soros and Koch are uniting to revive the fading vision of a peaceable United States. The street cred they bring from both ends of the political spectrum, along with the money they are providing, will make this new think tank an off-pitch voice for statesmanship amid a Washington chorus that promotes brinksmanship. Well, color me surprised. What a weird story. All right, so there's so many angles to this that I need to get into. First and foremost, let's just talk about money and politics and the principle here. That I am not okay with. The idea that all it takes to really change a governing philosophy in Washington, D.C. is, hey, get a couple billionaires and they'll use all their money to lobby the shit out of our government to get their way, and 10 out of 10 times it'll work. I disagree with that on principle, because the same system that allows these guys to swoop in there and play the hero on this issue is the same system that allowed the Project for a New American Century and neocon think tanks to dominate U.S. foreign policy for decades and led to the deaths of countless people. So, on principle, you shouldn't have wealthy elites able to control the government. Even if those wealthy elites happen to get it right every now and then, even if a blind squirrel happens to find an acorn every now and then, that still doesn't justify the premise of the system. We have to fight the system at its core. We have to change the impact of money in politics and basically make private money financing our elections illegal, and we have to make it so that it's all publicly financed elections. And the impact of big money is so odious that every now and then, if you get an issue where they're on the right side of it, they're on the side that's better, if you buy into the system, you'll always perpetually lose, because big money is always going to line up behind big money interests the overwhelming majority of the time. Every now and then, like in this instance, you have a group of billionaires here that are definitely anti-war and they don't like war, so they're using their money for something that's positive. But at the same time, you got the Koch brothers working, lobbying the shit out of Washington to make sure that they get deregulated and their taxes get cut as well. So that's an important part of this conversation, that we should still disagree with money and politics on principle because it's corrupted our system so thoroughly and it makes it so the people are not represented. That's the first point. Now, the second point is, having said all that, oh my God, we might actually get some change on foreign policy in the proper direction, because if there was anything that our side was missing all along, it was money. It was money. Like I said, Project for a New American Century and other neocon think tanks, they've heavily been influencing our politics for decades. The left and the libertarian side of this argument, we've been MIA in Washington, D.C. We're among the people, we're massively popular because, you go talk to anybody about any of our wars and the overwhelming majority of the time, they hate them. They're like, what are we doing? We're wasting money. Our people are dying. Civilians are dying over there. We got nothing out of this. It's stupid. We have a crumbling infrastructure here. We should take care of that. Like, we already won when it comes to public opinion, but that doesn't reflect in D.C. Why? The money. There is no organized money on the side of ending war. Well, now there is. Now they're starting it. And it's so funny because the, like, quintessential boogeyman, the boogeyman of the left and the boogeyman of the right, they're now uniting to do something good. Whoa. Because the Koch brothers really are swashbuckling deregulators and, trickle-downers. They want to cut taxes on the rich themselves. They want to get rid of all the rules in their way for their businesses. And George Soros, he's the key boogeyman of the left. How many segments has Alex Jones done where he, talks about how he's like a Nazi sympathizer and he's a terrible human being and all this stuff? And he acts like he's part of the New World Order and he's in favor of all these wars. Apparently, the Koch brothers and George Soros are all against endless war. And they would rather have negotiation and diplomacy. So it's just funny that, like, these, like, figureheads of everything corrupt and wrong in politics are now randomly on the right side of an issue. And they're going to try to actually implement change on that front. So even though I'm against it on principle, because I'm against all money in politics on principle, the net effect of this will be positive. Because now you'll actually have more of a fight in Washington, D.C., where there are competing philosophies. If they're really financing non-interventionist thinkers, non-interventionist lobbyists, the result will be more non-intervention that makes its way into Washington, D.C. So it's almost like we live in a dream, we live in a simulation, and we just woke up to see, like, the ultimate face turn. These guys are all heels, and they just did a massive face turn. So, I guess go Koch brothers and go George Soros? But no, for real, that's incredible. And maybe fewer people will die. And also, by the way, even if you believe in U.S. empire, as everybody in Washington, D.C. does, I think what they don't understand is this might actually prolong the empire. Because if you deal with world affairs and, you talk to people and you negotiate and you do diplomacy, that doesn't mean that you, like, lose all your power. I got news for you. Even if we cut our military 50%, we still have the biggest military in the world by far. So the idea of, like, oh, now we lose our international standing. Actually, one could argue that you would lose your international standing a lot quicker by doing all these endless wars and by creating nothing but enemies everywhere. So I don't know exactly what their motivation is. I think they might just disagree with war. The Kochs from a libertarian perspective, George Soros from more of a democratic or left perspective. But the intent of them might also be, in a weird way, to keep the U.S. the sole superpower in the world. Because you don't have to bomb everything and invade everyone in order to be the superpower. And they might think that as well, although I'm not sure and I don't want to, put thoughts in their head and words in their mouth. But either way, this is a fascinating story. And now you're probably going to start to see Washington change a little bit in terms of not only neocons and liberal interventionists being in control. Now you'll see some more non-interventionists come through because now they're financed.